A title: Medical Experts and How to Find Them. A disclaimer: the opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of the U.S. Department of Justice. This project was supported by the U.S. Department of Justice's Elder Justice Initiative and the Office on Violence Against Women. Portions of this program are protected by copyright. If you would like to copy, display in a public setting, adapt, or distribute this program, please contact elder.justice@usdoj.gov. An interview.
What kind of medical expertise would you recommend that prosecutors handling neglect cases connect with?
Arlene Markarian, Chief, Elder Abuse Unit / Domestic Violence Bureau, Kings County District Attorney's Office, Brooklyn, New York.
There are geriatric physicians, experts that help us a lot. They will look at medical records first, they will look at photographs first and give us opinions. I've reached out to heads of the geriatric division of the hospital where the victim was being treated to go over the medical records. It's very important to get that kind of expert review because as people get older, they are going to have different issues than they did when they were younger. And they can be more vulnerable. There may be medical issues that we weren't aware of, medications that were being taken, and it's really, really important in neglect cases. I learned a lot from talking to geriatric experts, and what I found is that whatever case you have, especially in neglect, you want to go over those medical records with the geriatrician, the blood levels, the fluid levels, what everything means, what all the tests mean, because they do mean something, and they can be very helpful in the prosecution.
Dr. Veronica Lofaso, Director of Geriatric Medical Education, New York Presbyterian Hospital / Weill Cornell Medical Center.
I think that geriatricians really are probably the best trained to recognize and assess situations for elder abuse and neglect. And I think almost every young geriatrician coming through their training has some exposure to elder abuse screening, and elder abuse intervention. So I think prosecutors should reach out to geriatricians first, and perhaps there are many, of course, very good general internists who are also familiar with elder abuse and its manifestations, but I think geriatricians are probably the best trained in this area.
You mentioned nursing records as being potentially very helpful. How can nurses help prosecutors who are handling neglect cases?
Well, you know, nurses are specialists in wounds. They're better at it than doctors are most of the time. So, and nurses, God bless them, are the ones who really measure the wounds, who actually really are in there looking at them day to day. So when a patient comes in, I look at the nursing note to see the best documentation of what wounds have looked like at day one and how they're progressing through the hospitalization. So nurses are tremendously helpful. And as I mentioned again, the hygiene, the skin care, they can comment on all of that. Physicians are looking more at the heart and the lung and the broken bone, and the nurses are looking at the whole person. And they are invariably one of your best allies.
Dr. Anthony Rosen, Emergency Medicine Physician, New York Presbyterian / Weill Cornell Hospital, New York, New York.
I think that there are people not only in my subspecialty in emergency medicine, but also orthopedic surgeons and dentists and ENT or ear, nose, and throat surgeons. There are dermatologists that are interested in this. However, those of us that have a specific academic interest are a minority in these subspecialties. Geriatricians who are adult internists, they're internal medicine physicians that have done additional training in the care for older adults and also have devoted their life and physician practice to the care of older adults. These are folks that are always trained in elder abuse. And this, I would think, in a community would be your first set of physicians that you might go to for expert assistance on elder abuse cases, because these are physicians that care for older adults and they care for the regular bruising in older adults and they care for the accidental falls in older adults, and they're the ones that are hopefully not routinely, but unfortunately much more commonly than all of us would like, going to see elder abuse in their practice. And so in most communities, there are practicing geriatricians. I would say that for the prosecutor that doesn't have any contact with geriatricians, it's worthwhile to start at an academic medical center in your community or to start with professional organizations like the American Geriatrics Society to identify geriatricians in your community. However, I also know that there are many communities in the United States that are quite rural, where it is possible that there aren't any geriatricians in your community. And if that's the case, then I would recommend two things. The first is that I would look for geriatricians in your region, geriatricians that might be in the nearest large city that are able to support your work and that you're able to build a relationship with. Also, as I mentioned, there are many of us that do academic work in this area. And those of us that do academic work and publish in this area are more than happy to receive information from prosecutors looking for help and happy to connect prosecutors with other experts that might be more local to them. So if you're having trouble, I would say look in the literature. Look for the folks that are publishing in this area and that are doing academic work in this area and contact them and ask them for assistance to find experts.
Paige Ulray, Senior Deputy Prosecuting Attorney, Seattle, Washington.
All you need is one person, one good medical person who you can call on occasionally to help you with these cases. And sometimes you can find that person through the actual case that you're prosecuting. Sometimes there will be a wound care nurse or someone else on your case who you start working with in order to prosecute that case, and that person ends up being someone you can call on in the future, or your medical examiner. We have a medical examiner who is very committed to investigating suspicious elder deaths. And thankfully, he and I and his staff and I have a relationship so that if they get a case that comes in that they think is concerning and they don't have a good police response, they will call me and I'll call the appropriate law enforcement agency and get them to look at the case. So we've got these relationships in place from years of working together that I think really help us to better respond to these cases.
Logos appear. NCAL, www.ncall.us. Terra Nova Films, terranova.org. Funded by the U.S. Department of Justice Elder Abuse Initiative and the Office on Violence Against Women. www.justice.gov/elderjustice.